Guest this evening is my friend and mentor, Grady Abrams. We'll be discussing his new book titled, I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Grady, welcome again once to the program.
Thank you, Ben. Glad to be here. Ben, could I take just a minute before we get started? I just want to thank you for all that you do in this community. You've been a forerunner of information for the last 4 or 5 years, and I just want to take time to thank you for it and show that we appreciate all that you do in bringing different guests and different information to this community. You're a valuable person.
Well, thank you, Grady. I appreciate that very much. I'm not one good at accepting compliments, even though we all appreciate them. But you've been a great inspiration in my life as well. But also we have to thank Comcast for giving me the opportunity to be here. Great working relationship. My producer is one of a kind. She's a producer of both of these shows here, Connect Live as well as Comcast Community Concern. So we've had, it's just been a wonderful experience to be here. We look forward to continuing this relationship. So once again, thank you for the comments.
And I too want to thank Comcast for giving you the opportunity to bring this program.
Okay. Grady, you've done a lot of things. You have been a political activist. You've been a public servant in terms of a elected official. You've been different types of job professions. You're an artist. Now you're an author officially. Yes. What is this transition like, and how do you add this to your resume in the greater scheme of things?
Well, Ben, I think it's just a continuation of the blessings that God has given me. I don't take any of these talents lightly. When God gave them to me, I tried to use them to the best of my ability and not let them go to waste. I don't take credit for any of these things. I just try to be a vessel through which He works.
Okay. Your book is titled, I'm Still Standing, Thank God. First thing, talk to me about the title.
Well, since maybe high school up through the present time, there have been a lot of events that have come in my life, events that were devastating in some ways, events that could have made me give up along the way and ask, is it worth it? But somehow I've been able to continue on, and looking back at them, I started thinking back after beginning to write this book, what would I call it? The appropriate name for it, I believe, is what I named it is I'm Still Standing, Thank God. I'm not lying down. I'm not knocked down. I have been knocked down, but I've gotten up. And I'm still standing is what I want people to know. And I have God to thank for that.
Also, in advertising your book, you advertise on this program as well as Connect Live. You pretty much wrote how you wanted this book to be described or advertised per se, and that was that you want people to know, if you think you know Grady, you really don't know Grady, here's an opportunity to know Grady Abrams. What was that thought process about in creating that advertisement campaign for yourself?
Well, you know, there are a lot of people who think they know you because they heard somebody talk about you. They may have read something you wrote, but I wanted people to know that Grady Abrams is not unlike anybody else. I have my faults, I have my ups, I have my downs, I have my victories, I have my defeats. I have things that I have done that I'm not proud of. I have decisions that I've made that I'm not proud of. They were bad decisions. I'm a culmination of everything that has happened in my life, my experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want to put that out there so that if people want to talk about Grady Abrams, they do have a baseline from which to start, and that's getting information from me first. And then if they want to embellish it, whatever they want to do with it, at least they're starting with a baseline. And that's coming from me and not from what somebody else wrote about me or said about me.
How important is that you think, I know you said you've done that for yourself and you define why you decided to do it, but how is it important, not necessarily writing a book, but just in general, how important is it at the end of the day beginning to be honest with yourself and tell your own story? How important is that? And that's from incident to incident or situation to situation. How important is it at the end of the day?
Well, if you're going to be honest with anybody else, you have to first be honest with yourself. And I don't want to come off as if I'm some perfect type of individual. I'm some person who's above anyone else. I have shortcomings, and I thought before I go out and start talking to someone about how their life should be, I should explain that my life has been similar to theirs. I have similar incidents to happen to me as they have had, and how I have handled my problems in my life. I want people to learn from that. And that's why I start and mention these different various incidents, to let people know that these things happen to everybody, even to me. But this is the way I took care of them. This is the way I handled these things, and this is the way I'm continuing to handle them. I think it's important to start off telling people the truth, and from there you can move forward.
Okay. One of the things that you mentioned that a lot of people, I can't say, well, I was not aware of until we formed a relationship, and that because it really was before my time, but never heard about it. Like I said, all my life I've heard of Grady Abrams, even though we was in the same proximity.
Right.
But I think at that point, you know, younger people stayed in their place,
sure,
as opposed to try to hang out with the grown folks.
Yes, yes.
But you, as a school teacher at Laney, there's an incident that you have in the book, without telling it all. Why was that so interesting in terms of when you was doing, I think, with night school or something, as well as you was teaching at Laney at the same time? And how long did you teach at Laney School?
Yeah, I taught at Laney for 4 years, and the last couple of years I was teaching night school, teaching math, along with 2 other teachers who taught English and social studies. My class was graduated and leaving the school a gift. They raised the money by having a fish fry and raffling it off a fifth of whiskey. Now, people may raise their eyebrows and say, students are raffling off a fifth of whiskey. These are grown-ups who were attending night school and who had this fish fry at their home where the raffle took place. But I was cut back from night school job because my class was the class that gave this party. I thought about it after Mr. Rollins, who was the superintendent, said that I couldn't teach night school again. I thought about it for a week or so and decided that if I wasn't good enough to teach at night school, surely I wasn't good enough to teach at day. And so I resigned from the day job because I could not work under a man who did not have confidence in me doing my job. And I wasn't going to be there and allow him, Mr. Rollins, nor Mr. Johnson, to treat me. He was the principal at Laney, to treat me if I had done something wrong. And I just resigned from Laney.
Is that the story of your life in terms of, because I know for sure in that era, as a young man, I can't go back as a young man now and talking about working around red and white grocery store, Hill's grocery store. I can remember when a teacher came through there, I could begin to identify them because I used to hang around the store on a Friday and a Saturday and take groceries out and get for tips, you know? And but I got to know who the school teachers were, and they pull out a checkbook. I mean, I just knew they were rich.
Yeah.
So you're saying right now, your story is that pretty much because of they had an issue with this party, adults had as a raffle, that were they going to do something about that, remove you from that, you made a conscious decision to give up your teaching profession in essence, because that's what you did.
Sure, sure.
And you found it to be a principal stand.
Yeah, you know.
Is that the story of your life? So that's my question. Is that the story of your life?
That really is the story of my life, and perhaps the reason a lot of people don't get along with me. Yeah, I live by principle, and I don't take sides with anybody. I don't I don't join parties. I don't join groups because groups sometimes relax with principles. They want you to follow what the group wants and not follow principles. Mm-hmm. So I have always come in conflict with different people because they wanted me to sacrifice and compromise my principles, and I refuse to do that.
Okay. Also, I want to back up for a moment to your college days at Payne College. Miss Bartholomew.
Yes, yes, yes.
I found that interesting. I found that very interesting situation happened in the classroom about the young lady being late for class that morning. Miss Bartholomew, white instructor, a white professor at Payne College. You know, like I said, it was an integrated staff.
Right.
And young lady's late for class, and she's late because she had to straighten her hair.
Yes.
And Miss Bartholomew was what she couldn't understand why black folks or black women in general, particular, taking straighten their hair. Why would they do that? I mean, what was that experience like back in the day? We're talking about in what year was this when this conversation was being had in class?
Yeah, that was in 1957, a freshman year, in Miss Ruth Bartholomew's classroom. She was an instructor there at Payne College. She was also a missionary who oftentimes went to southern Rhodesia in Africa to do missionary work. Miss Bartholomew, she raised the ear of the class when she made that statement that morning. The female student came in late, and she was arguing her point while she was late. She had to straighten her hair with the straightening comb. And Miss Bartholomew made the statement that I don't see for the life of me why you young girls, colored girls, do not wear your hair naturally and not put a straightening comb in it. And the students, man, they couldn't understand why was this white lady saying wear your hair naturally the way Africans do and not put a straightening comb in your head. And they started arguing their point, and Miss Bartholomew could not get her point across to the class. They felt that she was so wrong, suggesting that girls not straighten their hair. Well, maybe about 4 or 5 years later, we know what straightening hair happened in society. People stopped straightening their hair and started wearing afros. And Miss Bartholomew had spoken of that 5 years earlier when students resisted that, black students resisted it, and then became a fad 5 years later.
Grady, when we come back from commercial break, we're going to take a commercial break now, and I want to come back because there's something else that jumped out at me in that exchange that was in your book as well, and I want to ask you about that.
Okay.
We'll be right back. We'll take a commercial break.
Read it now, the memoirs of Grady Abrams, one of the most misunderstood persons in Augusta, Georgia. Yet many people think they know him. Grady takes us into his personal life and reveals the events, the people, the places, and the things that have impacted his life and shaped him to what he is today. You think you know Grady Abrams? You don't until you read I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Found at your favorite book outlets. Get it today.
Welcome back. Once again, you're watching Comcast Community Concerns. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. My guest this evening, once again, is my friend and mentor, Grady Abrams. We're discussing his new book titled, I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Grady, before we went to commercial break, we was talking about an incident in the book where you was talking about you was a student at Payne College, freshman. It was an exchange between one of the professors and the students, which got the whole class involved in the process, which was about she couldn't understand the nature for her why colored girls or black women were taking straighten their hair. She's a missionary as well. She's been to Rhodesia. She's seen the beauty of the natural process of them, their upkeep of their hair, and from that she could not get a point across.
Right.
But also in that, the class wanted her to know also because she said in Africa, and she identified us with Africa, the Miss Bartholomew, and the reply back from her for that particular young lady, I'm not an African, I am an American.
Yeah, right.
Now, how profound would that be today if we as people, not denying ourselves, we're talking about blacks here now, say that we are Americans? What impact would that have? I know it's kind of away from your book here, but that jumped out at me, how profound the statement was. And after that, Miss Bartholomew was adamant about what she had experienced in Rhodesia and the beauty of it. The young lady was adamant in her position.
Yeah, sure.
So what is and today, and you look at that today, how beautiful exchange that everybody was right, but couldn't be right at the same time.
Yeah, everybody was right. The young lady was right by saying she was an American and not an African American. And Ms. Bartholomew was right by saying black women are beautiful wearing their hair naturally. They both, but as you said, they both couldn't be right at the same time in the eyes of each group. But I think today, for us to say that we are Americans is very appropriate, because none of us in this generation, unless we came from Africa and were naturalized here in this country, ought to be calling ourselves Afro-Americans. We've been away from Africa too long to still be calling ourselves Africans. We aren't Africans, we are Americans all the way. Mm-hmm. And just as much as anybody else in this country, we are all Americans.
Talk to me about your Eastern experience. I guess that's your Northern experience. Your Northern experience in terms of going to Atlantic City.
Oh yes.
And you're sitting there in the restaurant and you want to have some breakfast, and she asked you about, do you want some potatoes?
No, she asked me did I want
the fries?
Yeah, potatoes. Yeah, how did I want my potatoes? Yeah. And I was looking for grits, and I told her I didn't order any potatoes. I wanted grits, and she asked me what was that, and I said, you don't know what grits are? She said no. I said, she said, we serve potatoes. We serve French fries and hash brown. And I thought to myself, I said, no wonder these northern people are different. They don't eat grit for breakfast. But anyway, I ended up ordering French fries and sunny side up egg, something I hadn't been used to in my southern tradition. We weren't eating French fries for breakfast that I could recall.
Okay, but also talk to me about the environment of from the manager to the owner. You also put in the book about that particular place, because you end up working in the city of Atlanta. Atlantic City, right, over the summer, and you in that experience also gave you an opportunity to look at these people, I think were Italians,
right,
that you was working for and working with,
right.
That how they would have their squabbles, squabbles at the end of the day. But where did they stand at the end of the day?
Oh, they were all together. They got on the porch in the evening. They sang songs and fellowship after they got through with the squabbles. Every day at the dinner table, and most of them at the hotel would eat family style. And they would sit at the table and have these ferocious arguments about different things, almost jumping up, fighting one another. But at the end of the day, they're sitting on the front porch, playing music and singing songs and enjoying themselves. The arguments didn't last. That was just their nature, to be argumentative when they were disputing facts and their points of view.
Really, also your life in terms of some of your careers you've had. Tell them about some of the careers once again. Remind us some of what your career looked like, some of the professions you've been involved in.
Well, I started out going to the ice house in my neighborhood for neighbors. My father had a wood yard, so I worked in the wood yard. He also had a farm. I picked cotton, peas, dug potatoes, sold wood on the wagon, on the truck. I cooked. I taught school. I sold insurance for Metropolitan. I worked at Xerox as a salesman in Richmond, Virginia. I wrote in the newspaper. Mallory Millender had a newspaper at one time called the News Review. I wrote columns in his paper, and I drew cartoons for that paper also, editorial cartoons. I I worked at Savannah River site, started out as an iron worker apprentice and worked my way up through the foreman, general foreman, superintendent, cost man in project controls, and then into labor relations.
Well, and what I wanted to make a distinction in that is to show you, is to talk about the two different, starting all over again. Mm-hmm. When you say that from the school to the insurance,
right,
to elected official,
right,
and I think from there your whole life turned. You start all over again and started in digging ditches.
Right.
And how do you go from being in the height of a career, being an educator, mm-hmm, being a teacher, mm-hmm, then you end up at Xerox, $1 million salesperson, you end up an elected official, mm-hmm, and you have to start all over again in digging ditches?
Well, you do what you have to do, Ben. You do what you have to do, really. I didn't want to dig ditches. I didn't go to school to dig ditches, but I ended up having to do that. Not dig ditches, but get in ditches and do rebar, reinforcement steel, and structural steel, work in the shop, iron worker's shop, and those kinds of things, grinding iron all day and burning with the torch and welding. All of those things I'd never thought about. But there are times in life you have to do what you have to do, whatever opportunity comes. And at that time, I was in dire straits. I didn't have a job. Joe Jones helped me out a great deal at times when I didn't have anything, and I have him to thank for that. He took a chance with me 2 times, one getting me a job in Richmond with Xerox, and the other getting me in the apprenticeship program. And I took advantage of those opportunities. Any kind of work is good work if you can get it and you can do it. I don't think there's any bad work out there.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break, Grady. When we come back, I want you to just to kind of magnify. You did not say how you got there. I don't know why, because that was my real question. Mm-hmm. Okay, why did you have to start over? And probably you may not want to talk about that, mm-hmm, but at the same time, talk to me once again, reinforce us about the dignity in work, period. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll be right back when we take a commercial break.
Read it now, the memoirs of Grady Abrams, one of the most misunderstood persons in Augusta, Georgia. Yet many people think they know him. Grady takes us into his personal life and reveals the events, the people, the places, and the things that have impacted his life and shaped him to what he is today. You think you know Grady Abrams? You don't until you read I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Found at your favorite book outlets. Get it today.
Welcome back. Once again, you're watching Comcast Community Concerns. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. My guest is my friend and mentor, Grady Abrams. We're discussing his new book, I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Grady, before we went to commercial break, we was talking about your change and your career change. And so you went from this height, being $1 million salesperson, you went, because we're talking about at the end of that, then you was an elected official, and from there you end up in ditches.
Yes.
Talk to me about the dignity of work then, because you had to have a job. Talk to me about the dignity in work, because all these things are in your book.
Yeah, well, you know, Booker T. Washington said, drop your buckets where you are, meaning that wherever the opportunity is, this is where you put up shop. You take advantage of the opportunities that are before you. Any work has dignity. If it's good work, it's legal work, it's work that you don't get in trouble with. And I found that there are a lot of opportunities out there for us if we can just accept the fact that work itself is dignified. Too many of us have the attitude, I'm not going to do that kind of work. I didn't go to school to do that. My mama didn't send me to school to do this. You know, when jobs are scarce, you have to learn to do what you have to do until the right thing comes along, until the opportunity comes along. Don't sit back and wait when there are opportunities.
Has it always been,
work.
excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but has it always been that people did not appreciate work as much as today, or did the culture, and I'm reflecting as you were thinking, I asked the question, because in the last 15 to 20 years, what was highlighted was, I'm not going to work at McDonald's, where we heard all the rap songs and all that. McDonald's was a whipping boy for people, giving people an opportunity to get their foot in the door, to possibly become managers and owners of McDonald's, or to get the experience in the workplace.
Absolutely.
But it was degraded. Do we think that that has now saturated the whole nation in terms of we've lost appreciation for work?
I think many of us have been. We don't want to work at certain places. We don't want to work.
And that's people in general.
Yeah, don't want to work for minimum wage, and you don't have skills, but you want top jobs. It doesn't work that way anymore. This is a very competitive world for jobs, and you're going to have to be qualified. And if you aren't qualified for the technical jobs or the upper jobs, then you're going to have to take what's there. I think if we see Mexicans coming across the border to work, risking their lives, there must be work in this country. And it is work, but it's work that we don't want to do. If we were to take the jobs in this country that are available, Mexicans would not have a reason to cross the border because there wouldn't be any jobs for them. There are jobs in America for people in South America and other countries to come and take simply because we won't work those jobs. And we shouldn't be crying about these people who are coming across the border to do the work that we won't do. The work has to be done. I remember going to Atlantic City. The reason we were able, the Georgia boys were able to leave Augusta and go to Atlantic City and work is because the people in Atlantic City wouldn't do the work that we came up there to do.
Same concept.
Yeah, they wouldn't do the work. They wouldn't
principle.
wash the dishes and the pots and those kinds of things. So the people from Georgia went up there and got those jobs in the summertime.
Talk to us about some of why you think the book is important, you know, that people take a look at it, because you are a figure in this community, and became a figure. I have looked at articles all the way back to 1965 where you engaged in the Chronicle. You was on the front line doing the riot. You one of the few people who was actually on the riot. There were other players who came in after the fact, but you was on the front end of that, saw the young man body and everything of that nature. You've been an elected official. I mean, what do you want people to take away from the book?
Well, Ben, since I have been in those things, especially as an elected official, I felt that my history is important for this community to know. I'm not trying to put myself up. I'm not trying to make a star of myself. I'm not trying to make a lot of money selling the book. But I believe that if any of us who have been in leadership position ought to take the opportunity to write our own history so that our kids and grandkids can look back and know something about us that has been written down and not just oral history, which can be get lost in conversation. I think it's important to do that, and that's the reason I wrote. I want people to know who Grady Abrams was, is, what he did, what he tried to do, and I want to define myself. I don't want anyone else to define me. I want to define myself. I know me better than anyone, and I want to give the people the benefit of the doubt of knowing who I really am and not what somebody says that I am, good or bad.
You got 30 seconds here. Tell me, when you look back at your life thus far, good or bad?
Good and bad. It's a mixture of good and bad. But if I had to do it over again, I don't know where to start trying to do it over or do it differently. So I'll take it as it is and continue to live it and see what's in the future for me.
Okay, great. Thank you as usual. I've enjoyed you being here. I encourage the viewers to go out and purchase the book, I'm Still Standing, Thank God. Grady, what the book means to me on a personal level here as reading the book, when you talk about in the first day in class, and I heard AB interviewing you about that, you made mention to you urinated on yourself that day. You had an incident. Yeah. But what I think I learned from the book and reading that, what it says to you about what you learned in life to me was, if you make a mess, clean it up.
That's right. Clean it up and speak up.
You have been watching Comcast Community Concerns, where we're always moving our community into the future. Have a blessed day.